Hey everybody, Dr. Misty, welcome to Wellness Wednesday. Thanks so much for joining in today. Let's talk about why you may be feeling like crap this week and why you might have a setback, because this week is not only a full moon, but it's also daylight savings time. And this is the time of year where we get more daylight, but this time around we're losing an hour of sleep, right? So why it might be affecting you more than just Sunday. So let's talk about this a little bit. So this especially this time around, when we set the clock back an hour or forward an hour, we're losing an hour. But what that does is our body has something, it's called the circadian rhythm. Okay. And so circadian rhythm is basically a cortisol rhythm that goes throughout the day to regulate sleep-wake patterns, okay? It also is basically, it's regulated by cortisol in your adrenals, but it's also regulated by your hypothalamus and your pineal gland to release melatonin. Okay, so what could be going on with you if you feel like, man, I really crashed this week? What happened? Okay, now another factor, if you're a mom, my kids are also fighting going to sleep, so that's going to be more energy, and I'm staying up later with them. That's a definite factor. Their body has to get used to this cycle as well, right? But for patients with like chronic stress and adrenal issues, this is really important, because when you have adrenal fatigue or HPA axis dysfunction, which is the hypopituitary adrenal axis, and that stress axis, the stress loop, your body does not regulate this as well. Your body may not have a very good natural sleep cycle as it is, okay? So throw in pushing your body like over an hour, your body has to adapt to that, and your body in general has been slow adapting with adrenal fatigue, right? So if you felt exhausted already, your body peaks at a specific time in the morning. Usually the average person, their cortisol levels are the highest at 7. Okay, so when you wake up, your cortisol levels should be high, and then as the day goes on, they should get lower and lower and lower until they're the lowest right before you go to bed, which is when you get secretion from the pineal gland to release melatonin, which helps you get into a deep sleep to help regulate cell rejuvenation. Okay, that's what's supposed to happen to an average person. Somebody with chronic stress and a hyperactive HPA loop is essentially doesn't have very good circadian rhythm. So this is somebody who is able to, that you might notice you're more of a night owl. You're exhausted in the morning, and then you're like by 10 o'clock, you're like, hey, what's up? Like, let's go ride a bike, and you might have more of like a second, your second wind coming on there. That could be a sign of your circadian rhythms being off in general and adrenal fatigue. Okay, so it's like between phase like 1 and 2, adrenal fatigue. And so what's happening with this is now that your body is pushing forward the clock to say, okay, what was 6 o'clock is now 7 o'clock. All right, so when 7 o'clock comes around, in general, that's what 8 o'clock would usually be, right? So your circadian rhythm has to keep up with that. If you are somebody whose body is not even regulating itself and it doesn't have that good HPA axis, your body is this is gonna throw your body off more, okay? So your body is already in this hyper loop and hyperstimulatory loop of the cortisol. So this is going to make your adrenals work harder. Okay, so you might actually notice a little bit more inflammation this week in your body, more pain, more exhaustion in the morning or at night. And not to mention that, but let's bring in the full moon aspect. And this might not be as common as people may know. So one thing that happens during full moons in patients with parasitic infections is that eggs in the parasites in your GI tract will actually hatch more during a full moon, which is really gross in some ways to think about. But listen, so many of us have kids, kids get parasites. Kids get parasites. If you have young children who are playing in sandboxes and putting their mouth, like hands in their mouths, like kids under 5 especially, you're playing with, diapers, wipes, things like that. You don't wash your hands as well. It's almost guaranteed, like you have parasites as well, and they have parasites. Ways that you can tell this might be happening are if your daughter or son tells you that their belly hurts, or they're having like their bum itches, things like that. Though it's not necessarily very it's not a very big symptom thing other than that. Okay, what this does is when the eggs hatch for parasites, they're actually more active at night too. Okay, so adding on active parasites at night, if you have them, as well as the circadian rhythm, your body could be like, what the heck is going on right now, right? You start noticing more skin rashes. If you started noticing more skin rashes this week, if you started noticing more swelling, if you started noticing more pain, abdominal pain and bloating, if your kids started saying, Mommy, my belly hurts, my belly hurts, my belly hurts, or you notice anything in their stool, if you're still changing their diapers, that looks like some sort of a string or little dots, things like that. Those are all signs of parasitic eggs, okay? So something you really want to watch for. And typically with general pediatricians, I know this has happened to me, unless they can get a stool sample, they won't treat a child for a parasitic infection. And it's very hard to treat unless you have a stool sample that picks it up. Okay, so just things that you can look for to help yourself, because I've seen a lot of patients this week, and including myself, I had some setbacks too. I had to really work hard to get myself back into balance the last couple of days. But if you are experiencing those things, that can be very normal for those types of issues. So adding on a parasitic issue to an adrenal fatigue issue, and that's what you're looking at. You're looking at abdominal bloating, you're looking at more exhaustion, you're looking at more pain, you're looking at more waking up during the night. You're also looking at more exhaustion in the morning, okay? So what can you do to help yourself? Okay, so number one is the awareness factor of, is this happening and is that a problem? Now, if you do have a parasite infection, or you feel like that might be a problem, you can go ahead and comment below or message me, and I'll help you direct what to do from there as far as what you can do to help yourself. If you feel like you don't know if you have adrenal fatigue, again, message me. If you guys want any more information on your case specifically, just send me a message. You can also comment below with questions on how to help yourself. So really, you guys, what you want to do this week is, if you don't know if you have an adrenal issue or not, just become aware of some of those symptoms. If your body is really taking a toll, and you're having more than just like the average person, like, oh, it's a little tired, wow, Monday morning was really hard. Okay, but this is more than that, right? So everybody's body's gonna have time to adjust to the clocks, and that's normal. This is more than that. This is like, oh wow, like my body really is taking a hit here, then that's time to think about, okay, if you're having some adrenal fatigue issues, okay? What you can do to help yourself is definitely try to regulate your blood sugar, okay? If you can get to bed an hour earlier, if possible, the most important thing, really, you gotta be self-compassionate, okay? Don't beat yourself up over this, or if you're having a tough week, or you just like, you feel like you're beating yourself up and you're like, I can't buy button gear this week, it's okay, okay? So I just want you to know that we can be really hard on ourselves as moms, and we carry the mom guilt sack of bricks on our back a lot of the time if we're not being the best mom we can be. So give yourself a break in that area. Okay, that's important. Take that off your mind, take that off your back, take whatever you're doing to kind of beat yourself up over not feeling good off your back. Okay, so give yourself some compassion there. So some things that you can do, I put a post up earlier this week about certain supplements that you can utilize. Okay, so acetyl L-carnitine is really great at bringing more energy into mitochondrial cells. Okay, so that will help. Another thing is acetyl L-cysteine, which helps with detoxification pathways and things like that. Licorice root, if you can get deglycerinated licorice, licorice root, if you're breastfeeding, use caution with this. This is for information purposes. I can't tell you specifically. Just have to make that disclaimer. I can't specifically prescribe this for anybody. So just giving some informational purposes, and you can speak with myself privately or your own physician to know if this is the best option for you. Deglycerinated licorice, not only is that good for your GI tract, but it's also good for your adrenals as well. Okay, some people in late stages of adrenal fatigue, like really in stage 3, where you're in just chronic exhaustion and pain and swelling, you're having major sugar cravings, your body just can't get going all day long. Okay, that's the time where you actually want bovine cortisol. Okay, so you actually want to start supplementing with cortisol in the morning, like a bovine cortisol, because that will help to get your cortisol levels up. It's artificial to start with, but that's one thing. If you're in phase 3 and your body's not going, your body actually needs more cortisol to help regulate your inflammation levels. Okay, so deciding whether or not for yourself, like where you may be at, you might be somebody who really needs almost like a false cortisol. Okay, so blood sugar is also really important. So really monitoring how much you're taking in sugar. Sugar is going to really decrease inflammation. Remember, cortisol actually helps to regulate your inflammation levels. Okay, so inflammation, pain, swelling, things like that. You really want to bring down sugar levels, because not only will that increase inflammation, but it'll also increase a lot of those crashes. Okay, so if you're not somebody with like flat out adrenal fatigue, you might be somebody who's maybe hyper. Your adrenals go like hyper first. You get like tons of cortisol release. You might be the person who gets the 2 o'clock crashes. Okay, so sometimes that has to do with also blood sugar, and your cortisol levels will regulate your blood sugar being released more. Okay, so the more cortisol you have, think of it as, that fight or flight response. The more cortisol that you have, the more that will stimulate your pancreas to produce insulin, and it'll also stimulate your cells to have more glucose in your blood. So it's important to understand that your body is, again, you're having a natural response to not only what we're putting in our body, but this week in general with your adrenals being stimulated more. So you might notice a hyper stimulation more of your adrenals. You might notice a further crash in your adrenals. Okay, so regulating your blood sugar in this aspect is really important. What you might want to consider is actually a 12-hour window of intermittent fasting, or a 14-hour window of intermittent fasting. So having a time period where you go without food for 12 to 14 hours, that can really help with cell cleanup, decrease inflammation levels, as well as regulate your blood sugar levels more. That's really, really powerful. So just a couple things that you guys can do. This is kind of more of just increasing your awareness on what might be happening with you this week, and then things you can do. As far as parasites, if you are somebody who doesn't usually have GI symptoms and all of a sudden you're noticing it, that's a really big indicator. If you are somebody who consistently has bloating, things like that, then that's not necessarily, that's a sign of, that could be a multitude of signs. That could be your estrogen levels are high, you could have estrogen dominance, you could have food allergies, there's a multitude of things. You could have an overgrowth of bacteria in your gut. There's a multitude of things that can be caused by, okay? So just to give you a little bit more information there, comment below if you guys found this helpful. Try to take care of yourselves this week, okay? Intermittent fasting for both is gonna be really, really great. It's gonna help you, it's gonna boost your energy levels more, and it's gonna clean up your cells as well and bring down those inflammation levels. So I'm Dr. Misty Kosciuszko. Thanks so much for watching this week. And again, if you guys want any other topics, please comment down below. Happy to do them in upcoming videos. I do a video once a week on health topics. And I'd love to hear from you guys and know how I can help you the best I can. Okay? Have a good week.